talking in general, what is strength? Strength is energy. Strength is the. Now, talking about strength, there are multiple types in it. Person who is very good in weightlifting, a person who is. Now, what do you mean by endurance? Endurance is basically divided into two different facets of classifications, but static is, understand, it's constant, it is at the same level. Ballistic method is a method where you're using sudden inertia or momentum. Next is static stretching method. Static stretching method is when you stretch to a particular, then you maintain that. Hello all, my name is Rohit. I take physical education on behalf of Prep School by Vidyashram. In today's class, we are going to cover the last chapter, that is training in sports. In this chapter, you will learn a lot of things and a lot of concepts and principles that you can implement in your sports training so you can perform better in whichever sports you play. With that, let's start forward with our today's session and have a look into what all things we'll be covering in today's session, and that is the session of training in sports. So looking into the chapter training in sports, we have all these topics to cover, which is very important from the academic point of view. So starting off with the first one, we have strength training. That is, we will study about the definition of strength, we'll study different types of strengths, the methods to improve strength. And after that, we'll look into the concept of endurance, where we will understand the meaning and the definition of endurance, followed up by types and methods to improve it. And after that, we will look into speed, where we will study about definitions, types of speeds, methods to improve it. And then we will look into the flexibility, where we will study again the definition, types and methods to improve flexibility. And finally, we will conclude today's session and the chapter by understanding the cognitive abilities, where we will understand the definition and various types of it. So I hope you understood about the session overview, and I hope you had a bird's eye view on the whole chapter. With that, let's start forward with the first topic itself, that is strength. What do you mean by strength when we study about physical education? Or in general, what do you mean by strength? Like I always said, we have to look into certain concepts as a layman first, then we need to understand it formally, how do you state it. So talking in general, what is strength? Strength is energy. Strength is the power or the ability for you to do something without being fatigued or without feeling tired. So that is in general we call it as strength. But putting it more on a statement, putting it more as a definition, so two of the scholars in physical education, Barrow and McGee, have stated that strength is the capacity of the whole body or any of its parts to exert force. So we are implementing a little bit of biomechanics and we are implementing a little bit of physics in here. So the ability of any of your body part to exert pressure or exert force, that is called as strength. So when you are pushing something, very heavy, for example, when you're going to gym and you're trying to push a medicine ball that is very heavy, so you're exerting a pressure on that. So there the strength is being applied. So how much strength everybody has depends on individual person. So everybody will not have the same kind of strength, everybody will not have same level of strength. It all will depend on the strength of that particular person's muscle or his ability or the years of experience that the person has trained in order to gain that particular strength. So talking in general, strength is the ability of a person to exert pressure or force in order to move that particular object or move that particular training equipment or whichever prop they are using to train it. So that is in general we call it as strength. And now we have a definition by Barrow and McGee. Once again going through, we call it as strength is the capacity of the whole body or any of its parts to exert pressure or exert force. That is according to Barrow and McGee. As a layman, you need to understand the concept first, and then you need to understand from the academic point of view. That will give you a better idea and better knowledge of that particular topic. So that particular concept itself we applied here. First we looked into the concept and the definition of strength. As a layman, we understood what does it mean in general, and then we had a look into the perspective of two scholars that we have. We have Barrow and McGee in physical education, who has stated the definition of strength that we read just now. With that, I hope you understood the definition of strength. With that, let's move forward to our next part, that is the types of strength. Now talking about strength, there are multiple types in it. Based on its characteristics, based on its property, it has been divided. So we basically divide the types of strength into two different parts. We have dynamic strength and then we have static strength. Dynamic strength is further classified into three different parts, that we have maximum strength, explosive strength and strength endurance. talking about the dynamic strength, let's have a wider aspect first and then we'll dive deep into each one of them and understand it. So talking about strength, we have two different parts. We have dynamic strength and then we have static strength. Talking about dynamic strength, it's more dynamic in nature. That means the ups and lows are much more in this particular kind of a strength. That means the strength that is being exerted, the amount and the intensity of strength, at some point it will be high, some point it will be low. So the activities that you do, which includes more high quality or high energetic strength, and it includes multiple different kind of, for example, if you do any kind of an activity, it has multiple different levels of strength application, then it will become dynamic. So if you are doing any activity that has a constant amount of strength being applied or constant amount of strength that is required, it will be more like a static strength. But dynamic strength is where you're doing an activity, at a certain point of time you're exerting less pressure or less force, because that's what we studied about the definition of strength. So at certain point you are exerting less force, but at certain other sections in that particular activity or certain other points in that particular activity, you are exerting more force or more energy or more strength is being demanded by that activity. Then that particular activity will be called as a dynamic strength, because at that particular activity, in whichever activity you are doing dynamic strength includes multiple levels. It's not constant, it is always fluctuating. The demand of strength that is required by the activity is always fluctuating. In simpler terms, that is called as dynamic strength. Talking about static strength, that is an activity. Static strength is applied at a place where the strength that is demanded by the activity is static. That means it is constant. The application, that is the strength level that is being required by that activity, is constant and it is not changing much. So that's called as static strength. Getting back to the dynamic strength, we have three different categories in that. We have maximum strength. That means in that particular dynamic activity, maximum strength refers to the maximum level of strength or the amount of force or pressure that particular muscle could exert at that point of time. That is called as maximum strength. The maximum strength that a person could exert at that point of time at his maximum ability for that particular activity is called as maximum strength. Explosive strength is the burst strength. That means when you're trying to lift something, let's take it commonly, let's try to understand it more practically. When you're trying to lift something very heavy, there is an initial push that you give to that object in order to help you lift it up. Then you put a little bit of casual kind of force, or your hand pushes gives a little bit of strength more to it, so that it is able to hold it properly. So whenever you're lifting something very heavy, you initially push that very strongly, you initially exert more pressure on that, more force on that for that burst point of time. At the initial point of time, that particular strength that you put in is called as explosive strength. And then you have strength endurance. That means once you lift that box, let's take the same example that we took here and carry on from there. So the initial force that you put for that particular object that you're trying to carry, that force is, or that strength is called as explosive strength. And after you lifted it, then after that, what strength you are using to hold it or to retain that particular position or to keep it in your hand for a longer period of time, that is called as strength endurance. So these are the three facets of dynamic strength. And now after that we have static strength, which I already explained. Static strength is the strength where the level of strength that is being put forth is very constant. So the level of strength that is being put forth is very static and very constant in static strength. So this is how the strength is divided. So now you know basically what is strength, and now you know what all are the different types of strength. And now how do you practice this? How do you learn this? Let's have a look at a common way or a practical way to understand it. So whenever you have thousands of activity going on in your life, physical education is what? Physical education is the study or the science behind different kind of activity that goes, different kind of physical activity that goes around in everybody's life. So that is basically physical education and the study of that. So when you're studying physical education, let's have this concept. Let's try this practical technique. How do you define, how do you get more examples for dynamic strength and static strength? Look and observe various activity that different people are doing around you. Try to observe what kind of strength is he putting in, and based on what you know about all these categories, all these different kind of strength, try to categorize those activity. That way you will have a practical experience of what does dynamic strength means and what does maximum strength, explosive strength and strength endurance under that means. And also you will also be able to get more examples for static strength. That's how we do practical study. With that, I hope these two parts are clear. Now let's move on to our next part, that is the methods to improve strength. Now, like I said, always strength is not constant. Some people have less strength, some other people have more strength. Some people have strength in certain activity but they lack lack strength in other activities. Depends on how much that person has trained for that particular activity. Based on that only, that particular person's strength will be measured or strength will be carried out. Okay, so there are different methods to improve your strength. Person who is very good in weightlifting, a person who is an athlete in weightlifting, or is a sportsman whose sport is weightlifting, that person will have a very good shoulder strength, that person will have overall core strength. Talking about a person who is in swimming, that person also will have a lot of strength in their overall body, because when you do activities like swimming, majority part of your body is being stressed, majority muscles that is there in your body is being stressed, the tension is being put on that. So swimming also gives you overall strength. But when you talk about certain sports like cricket, when you talk about certain sports like football, let's take football for an example, your calf muscles, your feet and the leg muscles are put more force, so the strength in them is more, but their shoulder strength will not be that much, or the arm strength will not be that much. So depending on whichever sports you play, certain people will have certain kind of a strength more than the other, depending on their daily activity also. But there are multiple ways, multiple artificial ways and training methods to improve your overall strength. Those categories, those methods are divided into three different exercises category, that is called as isometric strength, that is the first category. Then you have isotonic, and then you have isokinetic. Talking about the first one, that is isometric exercises. Isometric exercises are those exercises where your body movement is not much visible. Your body movement is not much visible. For example, when you're trying to push a wall, you're not moving the wall from that particular place, but you're exerting a pressure on that. That way, you are putting a tension on your muscle, you're putting a tension on your arm and the wrist muscle. Maybe ball is not moving, but at the same time you're exerting pressure on your arms. Because you do it repetitively every day, when you do it, your strength is being increased, because that muscle is being used to that, and it develops kind of a tendency and strength to withhold that particular kind of pressure that is being put on, or that particular kind of tension that is being put on. So those kind of exercises where the body movement is not much visible, those exercises are called as isometric exercises. And then you have second part, that is isotonic exercises. What do you mean by isotonic exercises? Isotonic exercises are those exercises where the body movement is clearly visible. For example, when you go to gym, when you lift a weight, when you do a heavy weight lifting, it is visible. When you do a dumbbell lifting, that is visible. When you're running, that is visible. So exercises which makes you look more animated, that is visible outside. When you do an exercise and it is visible outside, the muscle movements are visible outside, or the large muscle movements are visible outside, those kind of exercises are called as isotonic exercises. And then you have a third category, that is called as isokinetic exercises, which is very rare and people don't practice that much unless there is a particular kind of a requirement for that. So only certain exercises, certain kind of sports require isokinetic exercises, because isokinetic exercises are those exercises which are done on particularly made and designed equipments. Yes, that is artificially created exercises. That means whenever you go to gym, there are certain equipments particularly made to provide you isokinetic kind of a strength. So isokinetic exercises are those kind of exercises which are done on that particular equipment for certain sports. So whichever sports are under isokinetic exercises, when you do a little bit more research on that, when you do a little bit more, if you are more into the athletics, then you will understand it. So people who are into the regular sports, who are not into athletics part of that, but rather into the team sports and other sports, they don't practice this much. But people who are more into the athletic sports, they take special training for isokinetic exercises. So these are the three different kind of exercises that we have when we talk about different ways to improve your strength. So when you have to improve your strength, so you have a general strength as a human being. Even if you are not a sports person, if you are a layman also, you have a strength based on what your daily activity is. So based on a person's daily regular activity, the regular activity that he does, the regular muscles that are involved in this activity, he will develop a particular kind of a strength towards that activity. But when you get involved in the sports, every sports require a particular kind of energy and strength. So if you exert that kind of a strength, then that particular muscle will be developed. But if you overall want to develop your strength, apart from the muscles that is already strengthened up because of your daily activity, you have to choose between these three different kind of exercises based on what you require in your life, what kind of strength that you require in your life. So now you know three different ways to develop different kind of strength. You can choose any one of them based on your need. So you have the knowledge of each three of them. That gives you an option to choose from. If you didn't know this, you would be confused which one to choose from. So based on your requirement, you can practice any three of them. You have three options: isometric exercises, isotonic exercises, and isokinetic exercises. And with this, I hope you understood about the strength, the meaning of that, the different types of that, and the methods to improve that. With that, let's move on to the second phase of our today's session, that is the endurance. Now you understood about strength. Now we are moving into the category of endurance. Now what do you mean by endurance? Endurance is the ability to sustain an activity. In simpler terms, endurance is an ability of the body or the muscle to sustain an activity. Moving more into the definition part of that, we have discussed about Barrow and McGee, who is again two of the scholars of physical education and the people who have studied about sports training. According to them, endurance is the result of physiological capacity of the individual to sustain movements over a period of time. Now, like I said, always understand the concept on a basic level and then delve deeper into that to understand it more better. So that's why I gave you a little bit of small idea about endurance, so you can understand it much more later when you study the definition of that. So now you have endurance. Forget about the definition. First you start off by understanding endurance. Endurance is what? Endurance is the ability to sustain a particular kind of an activity for a longer period of time. Okay? Endurance is the ability of a body or the muscle to sustain an activity for a longer period of time. That's called as endurance. And next you have the definition. Now you dwell deeper and formulate, or you frame the whole sentence or the definition in much more formal way. You say, according to Barrow and McGee, endurance is the result of physiological capacity of the individual to sustain movements over a period of time. Now there are multiple elements in this particular definition. You have a term called as physiological, which should not be hard to you if you have studied about physiology chapter. Physiology is the functional part of your body. So the capacity, so the endurance is the result. It's a result of the physiological, that is the functional capacity of the individual to sustain movement, to hold a movement or to retain a movement for a longer period of time. Then that is called as an endurance. So I hope you understood the simpler meaning of endurance and also the breakdown of the definition given by two fine scholars of physical education, who is Barrow and McGee. So with that, let's move forward to the next phase of this endurance, that is the types of endurance. Now talking about endurance, we have studied about different classification of the strength. Now we are moving into different classifications and the types of endurance. Endurance is basically divided into two different facets of classifications. First, it is divided on the basis of or the nature of the activity. Second, it is divided on the duration of activity. Now let's first look into the divisions of endurance based on the nature of the activity. So first you have basic endurance. Now you can just keep it in mind. Now if you forget about this, everything we divide into three different categories. First, which is least important. Second, which is moderately important, and then which we have most important. Same kind of a mentality and same kind of a psychological aspects is applied over here also. So basic endurance is the endurance that everybody must require. Everybody requires to carry out a daily life. Then you have general endurance. General endurance is the general endurance that you need in order to do any kind of a general basic activity for a fit person. And then you have a specific endurance. Specific endurance is an endurance where you need a specific kind of an endurance based on what sports you are playing. If you're a cricketer, if you're a footballer, if you're a basketball player, so each one of those sports person will require a certain kind of specific endurance in specific kind of a muscle, so specific kind of an activity. So whether you are capable to do that particular kind of activity or hold on the endurance in that particular activity, that matters in specific endurance. So specific endurance is the endurance where specific kind of endurance is required for that particular whichever sports you are playing. So you have three categories. Basic endurance, where it's just the concept of endurance whether you are able to retain an activity or not. General endurance is how much of activity that you should be able to do on a regular basis as a human being. So if you're a 15-year-old kid, how much energy you should have, how much based on your height and based on your physical development, how much strength you should have, based on your calorie consumption, how much strength you have. Are you consuming a lot of calorie but still you don't have strength? Then that ratio is bad. Then the health is bad. Then your endurance is very weak. If your calorie consumption is less and if you still have less endurance, that explains that itself. That means you're not consuming enough to burn out enough. So that's the whole ratio of that. So based on how do you live your life, based on how do you carry out your life, based on your age, gender and the height and weight, there is a certain ratio of endurance one must have to carry out the whole day-to-day activity, that is called as general endurance. And then you have specific, like I stated, so specific sports will require specific kind of endurance, that is the classification of that. So I hope these three parts is clear to you. So like you see over here, based on the nature of activity, whatever activity we are talking about, based on that activity, these three classifications are given. And next, the classification is based on time. So if you have 1 hour time, okay, if you have 1 hour time, forget about everything else, 1 hour time is there. So if your endurance is for 15 minutes, that's a speed endurance, that's a short term endurance or very short endurance you can call it as, that is for a quicker period of time. For 15 short minutes you can put maximum endurance that is possible. Then you have short term endurance, call it half an hour of endurance, that is called as short term endurance. And then you have middle term endurance, 40 minutes, 45 minutes you can call it as. And then you have long term endurance, that is the maximum. We are taking the 60-minute clock, we are taking the 60 minutes over here. So the 60 minutes time that you have would be taken as long term endurance. Now don't try to write it in the examination like 15 minutes means short term or half an hour means long term and things like that. I am giving an example to you. If it is a 24 hours long scale that we are taking, then we can call it as 4 hours is short, then we can call it as 8 hours is middle order. So based on that you can divide the whole timeline of different kind of endurance. So basic idea that you have to keep in mind is that speed endurance is that endurance which requires a burst endurance, means when you're sprinting, when you're doing a quick activity, that time the endurance that is required will be put forth more under speed endurance. Short term endurance is an activity that you're going to do and you require an endurance for that for 10 to 15 minutes, that is called as short term activity. And then you have middle term endurance, which is a medium level activity or a moderate level activity which requires strength, that is considered as middle term endurance. And then you have long term endurance, where you need a energy or endurance for a longer period of time. When you run marathons, when you do intercity runs, all those are long term endurance. So this is how you divide different categories of endurance. How do you define, how do you categorize different types of endurance? So I hope by now endurance is pretty clear to you, the types is pretty clear to you. Now let's move on to the next part, that is the methods to develop your endurance. There are multiple methods to develop your endurance. Talking about methods, we have three different categories in that. We have continuous training method, we have interval training method, and then we have fartlek training method. Continuous training methods are those methods where the trainer or the activity or the training demands you to put forth the activity in a continuous scale. That means back to back you have to do different activity continuously without any kind of a stop. That is called as continuous training. And then we have interval training, where you give short intervals in between. That means you do a extensively intensive activity in the initial period of time, you give a little bit of break and then you come back and do it again. So you're giving a little bit of interval in between. That is why it is called as interval training method. And then you have fartlek training method. Fartlek training method is based on a particular kind of a training method, where it's a mixed combination of slowly building up the pace and slowly building up the intensity of the training. So you start off by doing a small little activity, that is jogging, then you suddenly start pushing yourself for a high intensive jogging, and then you start sprinting, then you then to bring back your energy, you don't take a break in between, you rather walk, you are not stopping in between, you're walking until your heartbeat comes to the normal pace, and then you again start jogging, again start running. So you see how the whole training works. You are not stopping to work out, you're continuously working out at the same period of time. You're taking an interval between, but that interval is not stopping you to do the activity that you're doing, rather you decrease the pace of the activity that you're doing. So if you are running to bring back your heart to the normal pace or the normal resting heart rate, you're walking, okay, you're walking in a normal pace, just like anybody would walk in a normal day-to-day basis or day-to-day activity, but then you're not stopping and taking a 2 minutes break or 3 minutes break, you're still walking. That means you're making your body in movement or in procedure, that way your body stays more fit. So here the more efficient way of training is fartlek training method, but at the same time for initial phases it is very tiring. You could get injured if you don't do proper warm-up and if you don't do proper limbering down or cooling down techniques. So if you remember from the 11th standard, we had a chapter called as training in sports. The same chapter in your 11th standard also you had, but there you had a concept of warming up and cooling down, limbering down, all those concepts you had. those warming up techniques and limbering down you have to apply here, because remember, here you are not taking a break, you're continuously doing different activities. You could get a sprain, you could get a strain, you could get an ankle twist, anything, that any injury could happen in fartlek training method. And you should not have any trouble treating those injuries, because you have a chapter called as physiology and injuries in sports, where you have studied about how to treat each kind of a soft tissue injury and bone injury, so that won't be a problem. But the point is, you should avoid those injuries, and you have to avoid those injuries, and you will be able to avoid those injuries if you do proper warm up and you do proper cooling down techniques, or you apply cooling down techniques. So what you have to understand by all these different categories, that each one of them have a different sort of, we will not say the intensity, because all of them are high intensive activity training, but there's a different characteristic or different angle of intensity that is there in each one of them. So based on your capacity, you have to choose between each one of them. Or you can start off by interval training, where you do a training, you take a break, you do a training, and then you can switch to continuous training, where you don't take a break, you continuously train, and then you take a fartlek training method, where you slowly build up from bottom to top, like that you do, and then you again come down, again go up, and you repeat that cycle. So whichever is comfortable to you, whichever training method is comfortable to you, you can choose that particular training method, and then you can carry out your training and be much more better in the sports training, and also you can develop the endurance that is there in your body. So that is how you train. These are the methods to develop your endurance in the body, or which will again help you in your day-to-day routine life. You will not get tired very fast, you will not get fatigued, and also it will help you in whichever sports you are playing. Now let's move on to the next phase, that is the speed. We have studied about the strength, we have studied about the endurance, now we are moving on to speed. Now what do you mean by speed? What do you mean by speed? As a general layman, when you ask to a general layman, that person would reply to it like, running fast or accelerating, or just running fast is called as gaining speed, increasing the speed, or they would just state it like that. But that is exactly how we should know first. We should understand that exactly in that particular same manner, and then we have to dwell deeper into the formal statement and framing of that. So hope speed is pretty clear to you. With that, let's understand what according to Barrow and McGee. Now Barrow and McGee is scholar, he has given all these different kind of definition in this particular category of training in sports. So you have to remember, and I have taken the definition of these two scholars, these two fine scholars, because it helps you, because you can get an idea about how these sportsmen think, or how these sports trainers and research and analysts think. So if you take different definitions and different scholars, it would be different perspective, because for endurance you're taking one scholar, for speed training you're taking one another person. Then it will not give you a link or kind of a timeline, or it will not give you a proper angle or the mentality of how the analyst is thinking. So that's why here, for you to understand it better, I've taken all the definition from Barrow and McGee. You can take other examples from the textbooks also, other definitions from the textbooks also, but since we have definition of all these three elements that we are discussing from the same author, I'm trying to stick on to that, because that way we will understand the whole angle and the interconnections, small little interconnections and junctions between these concepts, by the same mind, by the same person who have conducted the test on all these different categories of endurance, flexibility, speed, and all these different components of fitness. So with that, back to the topic. According to Barrow and McGee, the capacity of an individual to perform successive movement of the same pattern at a fast rate is called as speed. So what is speed? Speed in general is running in pace. When you're doing any kind of activity at a fast pace, at a faster frequency, or at a faster rate, it is called as speed. Once more quoting Barrow and McGee, the capacity of an individual to perform successive movements of the same pattern at a fast rate, or at a faster pace, or at a faster frequency or rate is called as the speed. So speed is very important when you do any kind of athletic activity, when you're doing running, when you're doing sprint, when you're doing a 50-meter dash, when you're doing a relay race, when you're doing a marathon, when you're running for a marathon. So everywhere the importance of speed is very high, and everybody has a basic speed, but you can always improve that. That way it will give you a bit more fitness and the performance in the sports. Now let's look into the next part, that is the types of speed. Now what are the different types of speed? You have a category called as reaction ability, we'll look into that, and then we have accessibility ability. Now all these abilities, all these different kind of speeds are based on the abilities, okay? Based on different kind of abilities, the different types of speeds are being classified. First category is reaction ability. On the basis of reaction ability, on the basis of acceleration ability, on the basis of movement speed, on the basis of locomotor ability and speed endurance. Talking about the first one, that is reaction ability, the ability of you to react quickly to a particular kind of a signal in sports. So when you do running, when you do any kind of 50-meter sprint, there is a person who is commanding, on your mark, get set, go. So your ability to run to that or to react to that particular capacity, that is called as reaction ability, the speed based on the reaction ability. Now that reaction ability, the speed based on the reaction ability, also is divided into two different categories. You have simple reaction ability and then you have complex reaction ability. Talking about the first one, simple reaction ability is the ability of a person to react quickly or in speed when that particular person already know about the activity that is about to come. For example, when a person is getting down, when a player is getting down on his positions, on his marks to run on the command of a coach or a referee who is conducting that particular race, he knows within 3 seconds you will get the command go. So based on that, he prepares mentally himself and reacts quickly to that. That is called as simple reaction ability. Complex reaction ability is those ability of a person to react quickly when the person doesn't know when exactly the signal would come and suddenly it comes and that particular person reacts to it. That is called as the complex reaction ability. So these are the two parts. We have simple reaction ability and then we have complex reaction ability. And then later after that we have next part, that is the acceleration ability, that is the ability of a person to accelerate quickly to his maximum speed from a zero position, zero speed, and that ability is called as acceleration ability. And acceleration ability, based on how fast he picks up the speed, affect the speed of a person and also the result of whether he would win the race or he would lose the race. So that is very important. Next is movement speed. Movement speed is different from acceleration speed because acceleration could be straight, it could be different in a different way. Movement is basically when you are playing football and when you have to move from one place to another place, how quickly you move, how quickly sharply you move on the field. So those are based on the movement speed. So the speed based on that movement is called as movement speed. Next is locomotor, on the basis of locomotor ability, the ability of a person to do large muscle movements, to run quickly with the large muscle movements is called as locomotor ability. Here large muscle motor movements are involved. Next you have speed endurance, where you have to retain the endurance. The speed is constant. You are not shuffling the speed. You are not increasing your speed in between, decreasing, and based on your tiredness and fatigueness you are shuffling in between. Rather, the endurance, if you are able to constantly maintain a speed from one position to another position, that particular category is based on the endurance of the speed or endurance of a person who is trying to run or catch up the speed. So these are the different angles and concepts and multiple facets of speed when we talk about different types of speed. With that, I hope the types of speed is pretty clear to you. With that, let's move forward to the next part, that is methods to develop speed. How do you develop the speed? Some people have less speed, some people have more speed, some people have speed when it's about running fast, some people don't have speed when it's about shuffling, when we do zigzag run where you have to suddenly move to left, suddenly move to right, which is that particular skill is very important in football because you have to tackle different players, you have to defend the ball from different players and take it to the forward position of the field. So that particular speed is important. So based on lack of speed or lack of quality or the training or the capacity or the talent that you have in that particular speed category, you have to train yourself. So some people are able to run fast in a quick sprint or the straight run, but other people lack that particular kind of a quality. As other people who are able to run on a zigzag with the speed, that is a different ability. So whichever speed you want to develop, based on that you have to train yourself. So first method to develop speed is acceleration run. That means you start off from shorter speed, you start off from a small speed and then you accelerate yourself. So how fast did you pick up your maximum speed? First you measure your maximum speed, get to know your maximum speed, try to run as fast as you can. Use any kind of measurement device, whether it's a sensor based whether it's a sensor based measuring device or any device. Take it and use it to measure your maximum strength. Once you know your maximum strength, then see from zero speed to that particular maximum speed, how much seconds you were able to get to that. What was the acceleration? How fast did you get to that maximum speed? So the shorter you make it, the better you become. That means every day if you train that particular second that you're taking, the pickup speed we call it as. In vehicle we have pickup speed. Pickup speed is what? From when does the vehicle goes to the top speed at the shorter period of time. So if a vehicle goes at a top speed at a shorter period of time, that is called as that particular vehicle's pickup speed. So what is your pickup speed? The shorter it is, the better it is. So you have to increase that, you have to train yourself. If you do routine training, that will improve over the period of time. And then you have pace runs or races where you are doing quick runs or of where you're doing races at a fast period of time. When you're doing different kind of races, you have a competition spirit. You always have that motivation to beat that benchmark or to beat somebody who is running along with you. So that motivation itself help you to again pick up the speed and do perform well in the development of speed. So these are the two methods which you can use to develop speed. With that, I hope the speed category is clear to you, the types of speed is pretty clear to you, and the method of increasing speed and improving it is pretty clear to you. With that, let's move forward to our next part, that is the understanding of flexibility. So what do you mean by flexibility? We have studied the flexibility concept in the chapter called as yoga and multiple other chapters, and how to develop it. You can obviously practice yoga. We'll get into the methods of that. Apart from the yoga methods also, we'll look into that. But as of now, what you need to understand is flexibility is the range of movements of joints. In other words, it means the range of motion available in a joint. So how long you can extend your arm, how long you can extend your leg, that particular ability of your body to extend is called as flexibility. So with that, I hope the flexibility is pretty clear to you. Flexibility is not a new term to you. It is pretty obvious and it is pretty clear and a simple term that we use in a regular day-to-day vocabulary. So flexibility is pretty easy concept. So flexibility is stated as is the ability of the range of movements that a particular joint can carry out is called as flexibility. Now let's look into the types of flexibility. The flexibility is divided into two different categories. We have passive flexibility and then we have active flexibility. So active flexibility also we have two types, static and dynamic. Now I need not explain much about static and dynamic because I gave the dissection of the word itself earlier when we were studying about the static strength. We had dynamic strength and static strength, but static is, understand, it's constant, it is at the same level being continued, and we talk about dynamic, it's always switching. The level of that, whichever activity or concept or context we are talking about, it is increasing and decreasing continuously. That is why we call it as dynamic. So here, since we are talking about flexibility, static flexibility is a flexibility where you maintain the flexibility level. Dynamic flexibility is a flexibility where you're doing an activity and that activity has multiple other small little movements in there which requires different levels of flexibility. So here you see that certain activities, subcategories of those activity will have shorter flexibility requirement. Some of the activities will have a longer flexibility requirement. So such an activity will put more into the dynamic flexibility. And then you have the wider concept of that, that is the active flexibility and passive flexibility. Active flexibility are those flexibility which you are doing on your own without any kind of external help. Passive flexibilities are those flexibility where you're taking the help of a person or any kind of equipment that is there in the gym to extend your joint capacity. So basically your extension, how long you can extend, how long you can reach, that ability if you're increasing with the help of an external person or external object, then that is called as passive flexibility. So with this, I hope passive flexibility and active flexibility is pretty clear to you. Different types of flexibility is pretty clear to you. The meaning of flexibility is pretty clear to you. With that, let's move forward to our next part, that is the methods to improve flexibility. How do you improve different kind of flexibility? So first we have ballistic method, where we are talking about increasing all of a sudden. Here ballistic means to levitate, to give a burst. So we discussed about explosive strength, we discussed about explosive motion. So ballistic is exactly the same. So when you're doing a sudden stretch in order to flex more, so if I'm making my hand stretch backwards, it will reach till here, it will not go beyond back, because the human biomechanics, the way it is made, it will reach till here. But if I try to push it back like this, it will reach a little bit more back. Won't be much of a difference, but still there will be an improvement in that. So ballistic method is a method where you're using a sudden inertia or momentum in order to push the flexibility level to a little bit more of a range. So that is ballistic method. Next is static stretching method. Static stretching method is when you stretch to a particular extension and then you maintain that extension for a longer period of time. That extension, the maintenance and the retention of that particular kind of static flexibility itself will improve the flexibility of that particular joint. And then we have dynamic stretching methods, where you do multiple short and longer and the wider stretch and the flexibility movements, which will improve the flexibility on a dynamic level. So why I'm stating that is, why the one trick that you can learn is about understanding the term dynamic and static. See, if you understand the concept of static and dynamic, it will help a lot in the chapter, because in every category you have seen this repeat. So static endurance was there, static flexibility is there, static speed is there. So if you understand the static and dynamic meaning itself, you will understand half of the concepts very easily. Next, you have proprioceptive proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitation technique. This particular method is used more by a advanced sports person who are not amateurs but more of a professional who plays at different national and international level of competitions. This method focuses on the method of improving flexibility, where initially the contraction of muscle is used. You contract the muscle initially to expand it at its maximum position or extension in order to develop the flexibility. So this method is based on that. So all these methods you can use, all these different methods you can use to develop flexibility in your body. So based on your capacity, based on whichever method is compatible, you are comfortable with or compatible with, you can use that particular method to improve the flexibility in your body. With that, I hope you understood the methods of improving flexibility. Now let's move on to the next part, that is cognitive abilities. This is one of the most important part of sports training. Even if you talk academically or on a personal level, on a daily lifestyle implementation level, it is very important, because cognitive ability is not only good for sports, it's good for every other activity that you do, because your connection between your mind and your muscles have to be very straight and have to be very sharp in order to do regular day-to-day activity without any kind of failure. So cognitive ability, let's dissect that as a layman. Cognitive ability is the ability of the muscle to coordinate with the brain to carry out certain activity. When I want to lift my hand, my brain sends the signal to my hand to lift it as I'm thinking. So different parts of my brains are processing in a different way to make this possible. So if I'm thinking like to lift my hand, and at that point when I'm thinking that, at the same point if I'm able to lift my hand, the delay between the mind and the hand is not much. The delay between the mind and your hand is sharp. It is zero delay is there. But if the coordination is not proper, maybe you will think at a point of time, after 1 second, maybe your hand will react. You will be able to lift your hand. That will be very weird if you think about it. But then again, cognitive ability is all about that. So when you want to coordinate your muscle, when the connection between your mind and the muscle, and also the muscle also has muscle memory, the interaction and the implementation of muscle memory to put less pressure on the mind to process those all scientific physiological movement that goes in your body is a part of the cognitive ability. So this was the understanding phase where you understood the cognitive ability on a layman level. Now let's move on to one of the scholar who have stated that cognitive abilities are understood as relatively stabilized and generalized pattern of motor control and regulation processes. These enable the sportsman to do a group of movements with better quality and effect. Once more, according to Zimmerman, cognitive abilities are understood as relatively stabilized and generalized patterns of motor control and regulation processes. These enable the sportsperson. Here we are talking about sports and physical education. That's why the term sports is used, but you can use it as a regular life concept also. So in regular life, if you are using, you can replace the term sportsperson by a day-to-day activity to do a group of movements with better quality and effect. So it's an ability of a body to do any kind of a routine work or a sports activity in a better way. That is called as a cognitive ability. You can obviously improve your cognitive ability by doing different kind of exercises and different methods to improve it. That we will see in a while. But as of now, I hope this part is pretty clear to you. The meaning of cognitive ability is pretty clear to you. With that, let's move forward with the next part, that is types of cognitive abilities. What all different types of cognitive abilities are there? Talking about the coordination ability, we have orientation ability, we have coupling ability, we have reaction ability, we have balance ability, we have rhythm ability, we have adaptation ability and differentiation ability. Though the list looks a little bit lengthy when you study it academic wise, but what you need to understand is all of them are pretty easy. The name, the definition of and the meaning of all these ability is pretty much there hidden in the name itself. Talking about the orientation ability, different types of coordination ability we are discussing about, okay? So that you have to keep in mind. Orientation ability, what is the first category all about? Orientation ability is keeping in your mind about your body parts in context to the location. So different location you are in. So I'm standing like this, my arm is here. So let me imagine if some ball is coming flying from there, if some player is playing particular kind of a, let's say baseball or cricket, and if it is coming from that particular angle, then I have to know that the ball is coming from that particular angle, the projectile is that, and the trajectory is that, and it could fall in this particular location. So based on that particular location, first I have to analyze in my mind in what position am I standing. Am I sitting? Am I standing? Am I standing facing that towards, or am I standing facing this side? What way am I standing? Then I have to decide that to reach there, I have to calculate the time the ball will take to reach there, and based on that I have to do a mental calculation that I have to dive, or whether I have to slide to catch the ball, or whether I have to jump to catch the ball. So all this calculation can be done if you are aware about the position that you're standing, about where your hand, how much your flexibility, how much your hand can extend to, how much your leg can extend to, how much fast you can run. So all these different elements are involved in there. So orientation is ability is about that, knowing about your environment, knowing about your body's position at that point of time, and how you can implement, and you can implement that position and the situation to execute an activity successfully. Next you have coupling ability. Coupling ability is the ability of your body to combine two different parts of your body to achieve an activity. So ball is, same example we'll take, cricket ball is coming from the air, flying from there, somebody has hit it and is coming straight to me. So I can use my one hand, but that will be too much of pressure on one hand, so I can use both of my hands to catch the ball. That way I'm doing the coupling ability. So that is the coordination of my mind to my hand to go together, hold your hands together in order to catch the ball properly. So there we are using the ability of coupling ability, where you're combining multiple parts of your body to achieve an activity. Next you have reaction ability. Reaction ability is nothing complicated, simple as reflex. So your reflex is basically called as reaction ability. Nothing much to boggle your mind about. Okay, so that is the simplest way I can put that. Reaction ability is how fast you react to a particular kind of an activity. That is called the reaction ability, and we are discussing again about coordination ability, so that we have to keep in mind once again. Next is balance ability. Now balance ability is the ability of your body to do any kind of complex activity or movement, and which can be out of balance, or when you talk about center of gravity, when you're standing like this, or when you're balancing on one leg or two leg at this point of time, when you're doing a particular kind of activity to achieve a particular kind of result, and to get back to the normal position properly without losing the control, that is called as the balance ability. Next is rhythm ability. Rhythm ability is the ability of your body, or the neuromuscular coordination, or the contact between your brain and the muscle to do an activity in sync with the rhythm of the activity that you are a part of. So you have a wider activity. For example, you are a part of cricket team and you are in a cricket match. So the wider activity is the match, is the cricket match that is going on. The person who is involved in there is you. So there is an activity to be carried out by you. So you are coming under that particular match. So the ball is coming flying again. You are converging your mind, you are converging your body, you're changing your body's position and the projectile of that and the center of gravity of that to attain a catch, or to catch the ball without making it fall. And then you have to bring your body back to a normal position at the center of gravity in order to be in a normal standing position, so without losing the balance. That ability of your body is called as balance ability. So rhythm ability is the ability of your body or the muscles to keep in rhythm with the game or the activity that you're doing. And next you have adaptation ability, where you adapt the body movement according to whatever is going around them, around you, or anybody who is doing the activity. So adaptation ability is the ability of a person to adapt himself to the activity that is going around him, or any activity, that whether he is doing it himself or whether the activity is being done on him, or the activity is going around and he is adapting to himself. So adaptation ability is that. And next you have differentiation ability, where you should understand the complexity of life and the different activity that goes on in there. Everything is not symmetric, everything is not mathematical, and also the rhythm patterns that we discussed here, it's not same. Sometimes the game will be fast paced, sometimes it may be slow, sometimes it may be different. So the whole game could be, or the activity could be dynamic. So understanding the differentiation in the requirement based on the context and the situation he's a part of, that is called as differentiation ability. So you can see what all angle you can see how the brain is handling the pressure. That's why people get a lot of pressure and they face a lot of tension and pressure. So you can see how complex the brain processes, how complex different activity the brain carries out. For us it may be a simple static organ that is not doing much of an activity. It is there, it's just there, not doing anything, but it is the CPU of our body. It is doing much of an activity that we are not aware of. 99% of the thing in our body is being handled and controlled by the body, by the mind, and by the brain itself. So that is the different types of coordination ability. So with that I hope you understood different types of coordination ability. With this we'll wrap up the chapter over here, and I hope you understood all the different components of training in sports. So we studied about strength, we studied about speed, we studied about flexibility, endurance, and all the different components of sports training and training in sports in general. We talk about the subject academic wise, With this, I hope all the concepts that we covered in today's chapter is pretty clear to you, which concludes as the concept of strength, the concepts of endurance, the concept of speed, the concept of flexibility and coordinative ability, and the flexibility and different types in that, different methods to improve that. With this, I hope this will benefit you academic wise and also lifestyle wise, because all these things that we learned about sports training, you can apply all these concepts in your day-to-day training life also. With this, I'll take a leave from here. This is me, Rohit, once again signing out. Until next time, goodbye.